Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn, and that's Emily, who is back. Welcome back, Emily.
I'm here. I'm here, but I'm not here. No, thank you so much to Paul who stepped in for me. Super busy with work right now, and unfortunately I do have a full-time job, so sometimes things don't go our way when we need to record. So love to have friends of the pod who are willing to step in and help me in my time of need.
It all worked out, and yes, and we had, I wouldn't say this was a great race. It had some very exciting elements at the very beginning, and then it was whatever, and then it went crazy. But before we get into that, there's actually a little bit more news to dive into real quick, to pigtail off what Paul and I discussed in the first half of the predictions episode. Colton Herta, who is going to be the Cadillac test driver starting in 2026, he has been confirmed that he will be moving from IndyCar to Formula 2. And as we said the other day that we weren't really sure if that was actually going to be happening, it is happening. This is how he's going to get himself his, magical super license points. I think they updated and that he has 6 left to go before he gets his license. But it just feels so weird to me that you're going from IndyCar, which I personally feel is not on par with Formula 1, but it's definitely above Formula 2. And he's basically stepping down to step up. And I just feel like that's weird.
Yeah, I think it's a weird fit. I don't know how successful it's going to be. I think it's odd. I agree, but we've seen people do crazier things, Kathryn.
You're not wrong. They have not yet confirmed which team he will be racing with. I said the other day that Prima was the rumor. Prima is still the rumor, and wouldn't surprise me because I feel like the top team in the minors, so to speak. But it will be. I think it will be very interesting to keep an eye on how he performs, and especially how he performs compared to all these young racers that have a little bit more experience in this type of car that he will be shifting from, because I'm sure that it's apples and oranges compared, an Indy car compared to a Formula 2 car, let alone a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, I would argue to say Granny Smith versus Honeycrisp, right? Because it's still a really fast car. You're still pulling G's. It's not like he's walking off a soccer pitch and walking into an F1 car. You know what I mean? He's still a motorsport athlete, understands the concept. Is it going to be very different? Yes, but in theory, driving a fast car is driving a fast car. So he could have success. We've seen some people make the jump one way or the other. Have they been the most successful driver ever? No, but it's possible.
Fernando Alonso did move from Formula 1 to drive the Indy 500.
85 years old and
yes, of course,
still racing. So let's just pump the brakes on using him as an example. He's kind of a freak of nature, but I understand what you're saying. Very good point. He's a great example. Yes.
Yeah, I think I do think that the Formula 2 car will probably be a lot, I wouldn't say easier to drive, but a lot less advanced than an IndyCar car. So I think that will be very interesting to see him going from the most technologically advanced motorsport vehicle in the United States to a car that is the same across all teams.
Yeah, and so I want to bring this up, and maybe you and Paul talked about this. Again, I've been
unavailable
underwater, and I haven't had a second to even listen to our own podcast last week. However, I don't know if you made this point. If you did, I'll shut up. But I think it's really interesting if this is successful. Because IndyCar, yes, it has an audience. It's very big in the U.S. Formula 1 is by far the most popular motorsport worldwide. I know people will argue NASCAR. I don't see people sitting in France and Italy sipping their cappuccinos getting really excited to watch NASCAR, but maybe that's just my opinion. But worldwide F1 has so much money behind it. The drivers have insane paydays, sponsorships, everything. They're so recognizable around the world. I wonder if he is successful jumping into the Formula 1 world, if more people, more U.S.-based drivers or, drivers who are driving in U.S. circuits, if they too will try to make that jump, just because it is it's a big money thing. You know what I mean? Like, look at soccer. Let's just use this as like a baseline. People are playing in Europe, making a lot of money towards the end of their careers, or when they're like needing a shift. They're coming to America. Like, look at Messi, look at DePaul, look at I can never remember his name, but he's from Uruguay. Everyone comes to the U.S. Beckham, because there's a huge market here, but like
Right.
you almost flip it of like it's not quite what you're looking for in Indy, so let's flip it and go to F1. I don't know. I think it's interesting to see like this crossover.
It's going to be a very interesting interesting experiment. Yes, words. I'm very tired. But what I think is going to be the biggest thing about this is nobody's going to want to turn IndyCar into another feeder sport, another like turning it into an actual feeder like F2 and F3 are. But I do think that the other question is, we still don't know if this is going to pay off. One of the things that Paul and I did talk about is the fact that, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, yes, they are older drivers, but they are signed for multi-year deals. So we don't really know what Colton Herta's timeline is going to be, because he's going to spend a couple years in F2. He'll be test driving. He'll probably also end up being the reserve driver. But then it's, how long is he actually going to wait before he's driving in a Formula One car? And I think that's going to be the real question. And that's going to kind of determine if an IndyCar driver is ever going to want to do this again.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, there's always contract buyouts.
That is true.
But there's also, other older drivers who are retiring, or people who may just not be up to snuff. We've got a lot of seats open for next year. Maybe a rookie gets re-signed to another 1 year or 2 year contract and they just shit the bed next year, and then all of a sudden a seat's open. So I never hold anyone to contracts in Formula One. We've seen so much.
We do know that.
Contracts. So you never know, honestly. It is the craziest sport. Poor Jack Doohan had 5 races, right? And then Colapinto, who's been super anonymous, has taken over. So you never know. I think, like you said, I think it's going to be a great experiment, and also a good experience to like see for the fans to watch of like, is the sport expanding? Because I know, there's going to be another team. There'll be 2 more seats. You have to find drivers somewhere.
Right.
There's only so many, options out there. Because, like, yes, they do have feeder circuits and feeder races, but not all of them are good enough to be in F1. Like, even if you're in F2,
it's the capable.
You may never get there. Yeah.
Yeah, look at Felipe Drugovich, who has been languishing as a reserve driver at Aston Martin for, hundreds of years because he doesn't have the financial backing. Colton Herta has some significant financial backing, I believe. And I think there's kind of like 2 branches in IndyCar. There's the branch of like, they're the older drivers who are definitely not going to do this, but there is a youth element of IndyCar drivers that definitely have the talents that, could translate back and forth. Like Joseph Newgarden was kind of like, he's one of the guys that typically gets asked, like, what do you think? Would you do well in Formula One? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what this does to the F1 IndyCar relationship, so to speak.
Agreed. Speaking of open seats.
Yes.
One is no longer open. Gasly has extended his contract with Alpine for some godforsaken reason until 2028. I know you always say a seat's better than not having a seat. I don't know who would put up with Flavio Briatore for 3 more years. But bless him.
Pierre Gasly is his golden boy, so I think it's a little different than the second seat. 100%. 100%.
No, that's fair. There are still a lot of seats out there without a contract, and we'll see how it goes. But we do have another extension. I think this one was an obvious one. Like, is he driving great? No. Has Alpine also like sacrificed this year because they lost their team principal and they're going into a new regulation next year and they've just given up? I think so.
Yeah. And
yeah,
to be
I
fair to
mean,
Pierre, which we always forget, he does randomly pull off high finishes. And we're like, why is he finishing in P5? Where did that come from? Because we're so focused on everything else that's happening that Alpine, as I think they're still the last in the championship, like that's how much I haven't looked at Alpine lately. There's so many other things to care about that you're just so surprised when he pulls out a good performance, because he is a highly, highly capable driver who just happens to be driving for Alpine.
yeah. I know, where
Yeah.
is Alpine in the... Oh, yep, look at that. They're last. Go team.
Yeah, I figured. But yeah, that means that there are 6 seats left without contracts, but Toto has, said over and over these last couple of weeks that it's just a matter of getting George and Kimi's contracts confirmed for next year.
Yeah.
And beyond question mark. So the questions are, it's 5 seats left, not 6. And it's what's happening with Yuki, what's happening with Isack Hadjar, what's happening with Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
That's a Red Bull and 2 V carbs. So those are going to be.
And we have the Alpine seat because Franco Colapinto.
Oh, right. Yeah. It is 6. You're right. It is. And it's probably not going. Unfortunately, probably not going to be Franco. And Franco will go back to being a Williams reserve driver for a while.
Poor guy.
We'll see. But I think the other really interesting piece of news this week is Monaco already announced an extension to remain on the calendar until 2031. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're adding 4 more years. So we are sticking around until 2035. It is 2025. So we are guaranteed a Monaco Grand Prix in some form. Maybe hopefully one day one of those will be a sprint race weekend for the next 10 years.
Kathryn, I think that's like my brightest idea I've ever had on this podcast.
Honestly, it is. And I think we just need to keep saying it until somebody listens to us. Stefano, stop talking about race lengths. Start talking about making Monaco awesome.
Oh, yeah. Let's make races shorter, because we've noticed when people watch on YouTube, they stop watching towards the end. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Do you know how much excitement happens at the end for like a lot of races? And also, they're not that long.
And look,
I can't sit and watch NASCAR because NASCAR's like 5 hours long.
Yeah, which we did talk about that the other day. But Max literally won this race in 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 23 seconds. Which I love that Crofty was like, somebody give me this information for me. I'm like, it's even Fernando said it's not a problem with the sport, it's a problem with the people watching the sport. He didn't word for word, he didn't say that, but that was basically was implied. It's like, it's not the sport's fault that people have shorter attention spans. Yeah. But anyway, to go back to Monaco, one of the things that I thought was interesting is I was watching another podcast who did an interview a couple months ago with Alex Albon that said that there have been conversations about ways to fix Monaco. Obviously, we had a mandatory 2-stop this year that did not work, but points for trying, and everybody was upset because everybody's like, Monaco just needs to leave the calendar, they don't want to fix it. But I do think that there are still going to be ongoing conversations about ways to change it. I think some of them might even include ways to change the track configuration and the circuit layout itself. And if I'm happy to keep trying because it's Monaco.
Yeah. I mean, try again if at first you don't succeed, Yeah, you can't lose Monaco. You can't. It's the crown jewel of F1. You just can't do it. It's like you can't lose Silverstone. I still don't know why we're losing Spa for a year, but whatever. I disagree with that. There's certain races that you just can't let go. And I think Monaco next year will be very different. The cars are going to be smaller, which will make a difference. It will change the race. Also, Monza, not to just jump into Monza, but I think we can. Monza's super narrow. Super narrow.
I mean, look at the very beginning when they basically said that it went from a 3-lane highway to 2 lanes at the very beginning when Lando said, "Oh, Max pushed me off," except Lando drove in the grass itself. Max very much didn't, because that's what we're all looking out for. But you're right. Monza is very narrow. It is actually supposed to be a track that's difficult to overtake on, and there were overtakes.
There were, and I think, granted, it doesn't have all the winding straight roads and corners that Monaco has, but it's still very hard. It was still entertaining. I think people make a bigger deal about Monaco sucking. Imola, hello. I'd much rather watch Monaco 10 times over than watch Imola.
Absolutely. Like,
So
Imola, as we all know, is not our most favorite race, even though Monaco, we will give credit for the intriguing race that Monaco gave us this year. But not good enough to keep 2 races in Italy. But anyway,
agreed.
speaking of the race that should stay in Italy forever, Monza was an experience of a weekend, and it had a great race start and then a kind of a boring middle, and Max was just gone like it was 2023. And then McLaren decided to Ferrari all over themselves.
Well, I don't think they decided to Ferrari themselves, because if they did, they would have double DNF'd. But you know, I don't love what's happening currently.
I really don't love what's happening.
And it's not even just on McLaren, it's on everyone else, because this whole race should have been like, wow, look at Max winning a race after not winning for several weeks. He started really well, killed it, whatever, right? But it turned into the whole McLaren shit show or sideshow of like what people think about McLaren and their team orders and how they're treating their drivers and how their drivers need to act. And it's like, let's talk about the racing. Like, I mean, I get that's part of the race, but at the same time, it's just turning into the McLaren sideshow, and I don't love it. It's making me really upset, because I don't know when we all like decided to roll over and say that Lando was the number 1 driver. When did that happen?
Well, they don't have a number 1 driver, but it's like to before we get there, which we're going to get there, I do want to point out, in another day against the whole weekend itself related to Max, is they didn't even show Max crossing the finish line during qualifying when he did that amazing lap. And I know that it was just, because it was assumed that, words, Kathryn, that it was either going to be a Lando pole or an Oscar pole, but they have timing screens. They know how fast it is. Like, this didn't come out of nowhere. Like, somebody in the production truck or the production room that they have should have been like, oh shit, we need to cut to Max right now.
Yeah. And they didn't, because all they care about is the drama at McLaren.
Yes. And honestly, let's talk about it, is this never should have happened in the first place. Like, McLaren should have never suggested this. A, never should have suggested this to Lando, and B, never should have come up with this idea of pitting Oscar but not undercutting Lando in the first place.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, they never should have done it.
No, and like, because here's the thing, and I told this to you when we were watching it. If the roles were reversed and Oscar had an issue with his pit and Lando ended up passing him, they never would have told Lando to switch positions.
No.
And Lando never would have done it.
No, it would have been that's racing. Like, that's what
right.
Things like that happen in racing. I fully believe that would have happened if the situations were reversed.
And the worst part of it is, like, this weekend even, Oscar came out and said, like, it's a team sport. I have to follow team orders because I'm going to need the team further down the road, which in my mind, he's saying, like, when I'm trying to win the championship, I need my team to support me.
And my team's not doing that.
Support them.
No.
They're not going to support him. They're going to end up supporting Lando. Like, if Lando has a moonshot to win the Drivers' Championship, they're going to, send him to the moon and hope for the best. They're not going to support Oscar, which is so stupid. Oscar's driving better. He's a much better driver. Lando gets lucky in a good car with a great race engineer. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, is he talented? Yes, obviously. He has a seat. He also is just the favorite, which, again, fine. But, like, it's blatantly obvious they don't want Oscar to win.
Absolutely.
Blatantly obvious.
It's aggravating at this point where you see the current championship leader being treated so badly by the team that claims, that bent over backwards to
have him in their seat,
to navigate him from Alpine's clutches in a probably mostly legal manner. If you know what happened at Alpine in 2022, you know that their legal department was kind of a mess, and that was part of the whole, reason why McLaren was able to get Oscar to sign a legitimate contract. But the other thing that really bothered me is how they compared it to Hungary. And now, if you don't remember Hungary, didn't watch Hungary last year, not this year, one of the things that stands out to me about this is they pit out of order when Oscar was leading the race, which I think is significantly different than being in the 2-3 position. Like,
Agreed.
It's one thing to, for whatever reason, pit your driver that is not leading the race and accidentally hand him the lead and be like, you cannot cross the finish line for a race that we handed to you because our strategy was dumb. And Lando just threw an absolute tantrum about it. Whereas, like you said earlier, this was a case of P2, P3, and Oscar, Oscar giving P2 to Lando was the best thing he could do in a terrible situation. And it was the right thing for him to do in a really shitty position that they put him in that never should have been put in.
Right. I mean, it's a joke. Like, even GP and Max were, like, laughing about it
scathing.
On the radio. And Max was like, they made him flip just because he had a slow stop. Like, you're kidding me. And yeah, I think they are becoming the laughing stock of F1, if you ask me. Like, the way that they're treating this.
Damon Hill posted on Instagram earlier today after the race, like, when I was at Renault, I won a race because Alain Prost's engine blew. Does that mean Renault is going to ask me to give him the race win back?
If they could have last weekend, they would have made Oscar pit so Lando could jump in his car.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's going to happen if they're even on points and Oscar is winning the race and Lando is in P4? What are they going to say? We need you to crash into 2 cars that are behind you so that Lando can win the championship? Like, where does this end? Where does this bending over backwards to drag Lando to the championship, where does this end? And what is it going to do to Oscar and his confidence in his team and his support and his career?
I know, honestly, Oscar needs out. Like, he has to leave McLaren.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is one of the drivers that has contract into the late 2020s. I do not think he is going to stay at McLaren that long. I do think that he will get a better offer elsewhere. And I think that it will be very telling once we go into the new regulation and see what other teams' cars, how they're able to perform. But it's like this is not something that any Formula One team should be doing, of like, we're pitting Oscar first, but it's not an undercut, and Lando's like, yeah, go right ahead. I'm like, no, Lando should know better and to say no. And also Lando shouldn't have been like given the option to make this decision. That this should have been their sporting director, to their senior race engineer, whoever, their equivalent of Hannah Schmidt should have made that decision. But it's like, the thing that I was thinking of earlier was like Danny Ricciardo, that race in Monaco where Red Bull fumbled the pit stop and he lost the win. Like, is he supposed to tell the rest of the Formula One teams that finished those drivers that finished ahead of him, my team screwed up, it was their fault, so you need to let me pass so I can win this race?
Yeah.
That might be a little bit of a false equivalence, but that's just what popped into my head.
If Max was ahead of him or whoever his team it was, I think it was Max. It's not like, hey, we forgot tires when he tried to pit, so like
we screwed up, so you need to. Yeah, that's really, and this is for 3 points.
I know, which doesn't seem like very big, but when they're the only two really competing, it is a lot. Every point matters. Yeah. Every point counts.
Which that's true. I mean, there have been races all season long where it's like a couple of points have gone, in Lando's way, and a couple of points have gone in Oscar's way. But I feel like this is really like the first one that's like McLaren has manufactured the hell out of this, and I don't like it.
No, it's annoying, and I just think it's setting like
a terrible precedence.
A bad precedent, yeah, and like. I try and think of it from the lens of other team principals and like other race engineers of, would they make that same call? And I really don't think they would. I think it's just like, it's a racing incident. It is what it is. we're sorry. We'll do better
bounce
next time.
back next week.
But even when like Lando's race engineer called and said like, "Hey, sorry about that. Like that's on us." Like Lando was being a little brat and didn't say anything. No response. Just completely ignored the radio call. And it's like, buddy, shit happens. You think when you mess up on track, like everyone else is not going to talk to you because they're pissed? Like that's not how you act. And honestly, I can't stand it anymore. I really can't.
And I think it also does make it worse that this is the race that preceded this is the race where, you know, another thing that happened to Lando's car through no fault of Lando's own happened that lost him 18 points. I don't remember what position he was in before he DNF'd. 18. It was he's in P3. 18 points we DNF'd. But I think but like to go from like, oh, sorry, something happened and the car failed, to then we need to start getting Lando more points so he can start digging at Oscar's deficit. Like, when do we get to be like the point where it's like, we need to protect Oscar's advantage in the championship? Like, this would never have happened in Mercedes between Hamilton and Bottas.
No, never.
No, Hamilton, as the championship leader, gets the advantage and gets the better pick. And I do understand that that's not always the case of like situations where Lando outqualified Oscar. I get that. That's totally fair that they would get him. You know, he gets choice A, Oscar gets choice B of strategy. And people are also saying that maybe they should start splitting the driver strategies, which might be a thing, might not. But I just, like, when in general is the team going to start backing the guy who is however many points, I cannot do math right now, I am so tired, however many points ahead in the championship, that Oscar is over Lando.
I know. Okay, last thing I want to say though, because here's my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
What if the front, like, guy,
the jack guy, the wheel guy,
the front wheel gun guy, right? What if he's like, Lando is really pissing me off. We're gonna mess this up so Oscar can go through and win. How funny and like sad and also like irritating would it be if he's like, yes, we got Oscar in front, and then the team orders come through and he's like, God damn it,
I tried so hard.
I tried so hard not to try hard. But I just think that really would be funny.
That is funny.
It's probably not true, because that would be like horrible sabotage to your own team. But
no, but I have been seeing I've been seeing the memes of like people have photoshopped Mark Webber, who is Oscar's driver manager, who I'm sure is livid beyond all means. That I think that they have photoshopped him in a mechanic suit. And they're like, I've done it. But I do think that there are going to be a lot of conversations behind closed doors that need to happen, where Oscar needs to be a little bit more, you need to start backing me as the championship leader. It is not as close. Like it is a race and DNF distance. Yes, but they need to start protecting his championship lead from his teammate. And, you know, Mark Webber needs to start, you know, throwing shit, you know, on Oscar's behalf to protect him. And I think that Mark Webber is going to probably have a very angry couple of phone calls with Andrea Stella and also probably Zach Brown if it hasn't already happened.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Man. All right. Well, moving on from McLaren, because I think we could talk about this for another hour if we really wanted to. But
yes.
More positive things to talk about. Ferrari didn't completely shit the bed in Monza. Did they make it on the podium? No. But was it a good, clean, successful, sneaky point race? Yes.
Exactly. This is just like what Mercedes did with George and Lewis last year, where they would get all these sneaky points and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, why are they so high up in the championship? And I think for Monza especially, I think it's great because you do not want sad tifosi at your home race. You can have sad tifosi when Formula One is not in Italy. And I'm sure that they weren't exactly thrilled that Charles couldn't repeat after last year, or that Lewis couldn't get a podium in the blue overalls because of the stupid livery. But I'm sure they walked away happier than annoyed, especially because Max won the race and it meant that the McLarens didn't.
Yeah.
Because they were very clear on the podium who they were happy about and who they were not happy about.
Yeah. Which I think we all share the same line of
Yeah,
thinking.
I also saw a funny meme of it was Lewis and Fred Vasseur, and it was like, here's our Monza engine, the one good engine that they have, and then Ferrari's all over themselves the rest of the season. So I just thought that was a silly little bit.
Very kind of in line. Also, we'll get to this in a little bit. Isack got P10, but that's coming from the pit lane, which is like, okay.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting, in after qualifying. Obviously he broke his streak of getting out of Q1, which was very unfortunate. And then there was like one line on the broadcast of, oh, they're going to be replacing his power unit and he's going to start from the pit lane, that I don't know if the rest of media really caught on to that, because clickbaity, it, headline wise, it's better to say, oh, Isack Hadjar knocked out of qualifying in Q1 after his podium last week at Zandvoort. That's terrible. What's going to happen to him? When really it was very quickly realized while qualifying was still happening that it was a power unit issue, so that he was going to start in the pit lane. They announced that during qualifying that he was going to start in the pit lane. That I really don't think was picked up on enough afterwards, and clearly that power unit worked. And plus the strategy, he did manage a bunch of overtakes on a track that is not easy to overtake on, and finished P10.
Yeah, so you got a point. And he lost me 3 points, but that's okay.
He did lose you 3 points, and I'm so
really
sorry.
Him. It was more Kimi. So
yeah.
Kimi, this is one of 2 of his home races. He's from Bologna area, but it's Italy, so it's technically a home race for him.
Right.
But yeah,
I mean, technically it's a home race for VCARB, if we want to be technical about it, because they're also an Italian team.
And we'll also say, half of a home race for
Haas. Yeah, but anyway,
everyone's home race.
Everyone's home race is Monza. No, that's Monaco, because that's where they all live, unless you're, French and you can't live in Monaco for the tax breaks. But anyway, back to Kimi. Mixed bag of a weekend.
Rough weekend. Ended it with a penalty for driving erratically, which if that doesn't scream I'm a rookie, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
But poor guy. And then, speaking of rookies, Ollie Bearman also just struggling. This 10-second penalty thing, I feel like they're just handing those out like hotcakes this year. It's like,
well, here's the thing.
10 seconds. Little bump, 10 seconds. Like, how many points does this poor kid have on his license now?
He has 10, which is actually a kind of big deal. He got 2 more and is 2 away from a race ban, so we might have a repeat of what happened last year with Kevin Magnussen. But also, to go back to last year, prior to the season, the Drivers Association and the FIA came together and agreed that drivers needed harsher penalties for on-track incidents like this one, and that the 5-second penalties that had been handed out in the past weren't enough of a deterrent for them, which is why 5-second penalties in this case don't really exist anymore. It's something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of like I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying that's why it's been happening.
I understand, but like, some of them that have been happening are clear racing incidents. Like, it's not them being a complete idiot and causing a crash. It's like a clear racing incident. And so that, again, is our argument that we've always made, is if you start penalizing clear, non-penalizable things, it's like, it's going to take away from the quality of the racing we get. Because if it's like, oh, if I bump someone, I'm going to get 2 points on my license and a 10-second penalty. So, like, I'm going to hit the brake sooner, but then we don't get the overtakes, and then we get slower racing, and then we don't get good racing. So it's like, you have to kind of weigh the safety and following obviously they have to follow the rules, but you understand the safety and like the product. So
yeah, well, it's like at Zandvoort when George and Charles were fighting, and they banged wheels multiple times on that little attempt before Charles was out of the race, and everyone's like, if that was a different driver, they would have gotten a significant penalty for that. So the other question is, are these penalties being leveled, fairly
no
across
bias.
all drivers without bias or, emphasis on nationality. British drivers. So
Yeah, but everyone loves Carlos. He's not Max. Why did Carlos get it with 10 seconds? I really hope that their hearing goes well. Because
yes, they did announce
for something that is dumb.
To go to Carlos real quick, during the weekend, Williams announced that they were going through right of review for Carlos's penalty against Liam Lawson in Zandvoort. I don't know how soon we're going to hear anything about this, or if it's really going to be
early this week.
Possibly. It might just be a blip on the radar in general, because I think the only thing the sport is going to talk about over the next couple of weeks is going to be McLaren. But I honestly don't know if the FIA is going to do anything about it. I'm sure that nobody's going to be satisfied with what they have to say. I think my biggest problem is that they didn't let Carlos speak with them following the race.
Agreed.
Like at the bare minimum, the FIA and race directors should have heard him out and accepted the meeting. I don't know why they refused to see him.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway.
Another gripe we have with the FIA.
Shocking, I know.
It's time for our Monza predictions, which you did good this weekend. I did not, but
I didn't do the math on what the score is, so we will have our current standings after Baku.
Yeah. Okay, so pole position was Max. You and Paul had Oscar. I had Lando, so no points there. Podium was Max, Lando, Oscar. You had Oscar, Lando, Max, so you did have 3 points for at least getting the podium, not necessarily in the right order.
The right order.
I was believing in that Tifosi magic, and I was close. But I had Oscar, close. Lando, Charles, and then Paul had Lando, Oscar, Max. So also getting the acknowledgement of getting everyone right on the podium. And then, unfortunately, Kimi did not get P10, but I was very close.
Which I think is funny, because they're like, I wanted him to drop down the standings more.
I know, I'm like, can you drop further? But it was Isack Hadjar. Good for him, starting the pit lane. You had Carlos, and Paul had Fernando.
Yes. Which poor Fernando. And
he's just struggling, man. I think he's just like, when are we getting the freaking Newey car?
Right. They are so ready at Aston Martin to get that Adrian Newey car. I will say that the light show we got from the sparks flying out of Fernando's car when the suspension failed, it was obviously terrible, but also fun to look at on screen. But between him and Nico Hulkenberg doing the formation lap and being told, you have to retire the car now. Your day is done, sir. Like, it is not a good day for drivers on green teams. Though Bortoletto did have a strong start to the race. He just didn't finish as well, but he was in in the points for a while, which was, I mean, we know how impressive he is. Like, there's no question of it.
Yep. Okay, and then for biggest surprise, I did not do these because I forgot, but Kathryn and Paul are bringing us home. So you said that Ferrari's going to figure it out, and on the flip side, Paul said Ferrari's going to do a dumb. So you got that right. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you full credit for it. They got P4, P6. I think that's better than a lot of the races they've been doing this year. So
my real question about this is this
a blip?
Is this a blip? Is this just because it's Monza and they always, they build the car to be successful at Monza? Or is this like an indicator that they're not going to allow Mercedes and Red Bull to fight them for P2 in the championship?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think it's like I have so much riding on the second half of the season for like everybody. I think now that we're back, and it truly is, we're back to racing. Like Zandvoort, I feel like is such a one-off track with how the corners are banked, and it is very different. The aerodynamics are different. I think Monza's getting us back to more of a traditional track. Mm-hmm. So I think we're like back to racing, back to figuring the car out. I think Ferrari's going to do good. I hope. I don't know. But I don't think it's a fluke. I think if they can both stay in the car, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I hope so. And then who was going to do a dumb was Liam Lawson was going to get into trouble again, which he was just completely irrelevant. Whereas Paul's big surprise was that there was going to be double points for Haas, which very much nope. So le oops there. And we shall see how our surprises and dumbs fare next week. The week after, next race in Baku.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back to a street race. We haven't had one in a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last one. Was it Monaco?
Quite possibly. Zandvoort, no, Hungary, no, Belgium. No.
Anyways, so overall, exciting, like, first
It was
15
Monaco.
minutes. God, look at me go. I'm so good at this. Anyways, good kind of start. It was exciting, and I was like, oh, we're going to get really good racing. And then I was like, it's kind of boring. And then all the McLaren and... but no, overall, I thought it was fine. It was good. Good race.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as exciting as Zandvoort, but like I say, they can't all be bangers. But I really appreciated that Max can come out and say, I'm not going to win a race again after Hungary. And then all of a sudden, he wins a race again, which of course he did the same thing like toward the end of last year. He was like, I'm not going to win a race again. And then all of a sudden he won in Sao Paulo. So I think that, Max is probably out of, he's out of reach of the championship at this point, especially if the McLarens are going to keep pulling this McLaren nonsense. But we still have a chance to see some really good performances out of Max. Speaking of coming up next in Baku, McLaren will be able to clinch it for the first time this season in Baku if they don't, have their cars crash into each other or do something stupid. But they need to have a 346-point advantage over currently Ferrari and P2 in order to clinch it, which is mathematically possible now.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Cool. So like we've been saying, Baku's up next. We do have an off week, and then we have Baku. But look out for our prediction episode coming out Thursday before the race. That's it for Monza. Thanks for going out track with us, guys.